WTWO's Philip Austin.
That won't soon be forgotten for the families and friends of the 1544th Transportation Unit out of Illinois. Even though the unit returned to the States a week apart, these soldiers were determined to all come home together. Today is homecoming day. The scene in Paris was one of absolute celebration. For hours, the streets were lined with thousands of people waiting to welcome back the 1544th Transportation Company. As the soldiers got off of the buses and lined up to march to the center of town, the chants of welcome home in the USA were deafening. The streets were so crowded that they had to be cleared by police cars just so the soldiers could get downtown for the celebration.
It's been crazy. People have been lined up for an hour ago, and it's just intense. It's crazy. It's awesome.
It's way bigger than we expected, especially on the outskirts of town, like different towns where there's a lot of people.
After a short ceremony and moment of silence for those who had given their lives, the soldiers were released into the arms of their families and friends. Ann and Tom?
Special day. Not everyone who left with the 1544th returned today.
The unit was assigned to deliver vital supplies along some of Iraq's most deadly routes. More than 24 soldiers suffered serious injuries and 5 lost their lives in battle. Sergeant Ivory Phillips, Sergeant Jeremy Ridlin, Army Sergeant Shauna Morrison, Army Specialist Charles Lamb, and Army Specialist Jessica Covey.
That's what made the return of the soldiers today so wonderful.
WTWO's Mitch Blocker joins us now live from Paris to tell us more about today's reunion. Mitch?
Hey, Tom and Ann, it's been a really emotional day out here and a big day full of emotions and, to be honest, of patriotism. The church down the street just got done playing America the Beautiful, and the entire street is lined with American flags. It's the same street that the troops from the 1544th walked down into the open arms of their friends and family today. It was a wonderful welcome home. There were plenty of hugs, plenty of kisses, and plenty of emotions. Moms and sons reuniting for the first time, husbands returning home to overjoyed wives. It was really quite a scene, and here's some of the words from those troops and their reunited families.
What's it like to hug, Mom?
Don't ever want it to end, I guess.
It's something I missed for too long.
We'll have more coverage coming up tonight at 10 o'clock on WBAK and right here on News Channel 2 at 11. Back to Tom and Ann in the studio.
Thank you, Mitch. A great day.
This is your news. WTWO News Channel 2, late edition. Live with the Wabash Valley's 24-hour news team. Your news advantage starts now.
It's been a day of celebration for the friends and family of the 1544th Transportation Company. Hi, I'm Ann Shea.
And I'm Tom McClennan. Thanks for joining us on our late edition.
Well, it is a day that won't soon be forgotten for the families and friends of the 1544 Transportation Unit out of Illinois.
Even though the unit returned to the States a week apart, these soldiers were determined to all come home together. WTWO's Philip Austin has the story of the homecoming.
For hours, friends and family waited in the cold to welcome home the soldiers of the 1544th Transportation Company.
It's going to be relief, and it's going to be lots of emotion, thrilling. Just welcome back.
The support of the communities and their families as the guys have been gone has just been incredible. You cannot explain what it means to you as a parent to know that you have that support around you.
And for some parents, it wasn't enough waiting for the soldiers to come down to the courthouse. They needed to see them as soon as possible.
My son's with the unit, and I wanted to see him as soon as he got off of the bus.
When the soldiers got off of the buses, they were welcomed by children chanting USA, and the soldiers we talked to were overwhelmed by the community support.
It's way bigger than we expected, especially on the outskirts of town, like different towns where there's a lot of people.
And as they headed down the streets of Paris, they realized those other towns were only a sample of the support they had when they were overseas. Thousands had come out to welcome them home.
It's been crazy. People have been lined up for an hour ago, and it's just intense. It's crazy. It's awesome.
Well, intensity, emotion, and patriotism were major themes as the 1544th returned home.
There were plenty of hugs and kisses as mothers and sons reunited for the first time while husbands returned home to overjoyed wives.
WTWO's Mitch Blocker picks up our coverage with a story about the day's emotions in the soldiers' own words.
Don't ever want it to end, I guess.
It's something I missed for too long. Actually coming back and driving into town and seeing it and seeing all the people and all the emotion, you can't describe it.
We just pick up where we left off because he's my friend. He's always been my best friend.
She's not only my wife, she's my best friend.
The waiting's what kills you, worrying and stuff, but it's over.
Only thing I hated doing was leaving the soldiers that took my place. And we was going out the gate. We felt good, I felt sad. It was a mixed emotional thing. But I guess we put in our duty. It's time for somebody else to keep the ball rolling. Support from home was grand all the way through. This put the icing on the cake.
I don't know if there's any words to describe it. I've never been away from my boys this long, and you really miss them.
I'm sure he is here somewhere.
After a while. And it's good to know that they're safe finally, because I know they were in a really dangerous spot, I guess. It's hard. It's hard. We'll never forget the ones that died. It's a good day. Yeah, I hope they never leave us again.
And a patriotic crowd also lined the streets in Marshall, Illinois. They welcomed home the soldiers from the 1544th from Clark County. People cheered as they paraded into town. There was also a short ceremony and lots of hugs from family and friends.
But for most of us, it's a lift. It's an excitement that we can't begin to share. It's overwhelming. They have been so brave and put through so much. We're just glad to have them home.
There are about 15 members of the 1544th returning home who live in Clark County.
Good afternoon, I'm Patrice Dayton. Coming up tonight on Action 10 News at 6 o'clock, it is the day many Wabash Valley families have been waiting for. The day their soldiers of the 1544th Transportation Company roll back home safe and sound. We'll take you to the happy homecoming tonight.
This is First at 5 with Patrice Dayton and Chief Meteorologist Kevin Orbert.
Good afternoon, I'm Patrice Dayton. In the news on this Tuesday, it's the day several Wabash Valley families have been waiting for. The day their soldiers of the 1544th Transportation Company return home safe and sound. About 160 soldiers on 3 buses were dropped off in front of Paris High School this afternoon. Together, they marched toward the War Memorial and a homecoming with their families. The Paris-based unit served for more than a year in Operation Iraqi Freedom. The troops are now clear to head back to their hometowns to spend time with their family and friends. A full report on the happy homecoming coming up on Action 10 News at 6 o'clock.
It's the day the city of Paris, Illinois has been waiting for. The 1544th Transportation Unit back with their families tonight.
A very happy day. The Illinois National Guard unit spent more than a year in Iraq.
The Welcome Home Parade was quite an event for such a small town and a large display of gratitude and love.
Action 10's Melissa Andrews gets to the heart of the story for the long-awaited arrival of the 1544th.
Paris bursting with joy as thousands line the city streets, filled with pride and relief for their soldiers' safe return.
It's excitement. It's like it says you're home.
About 160 soldiers on 3 buses were dropped off in front of Paris High School. Together, they marched toward the War Memorial and their families. Wanda James's daughter Stephanie left with the 1544th more than a year ago. Now she's home with the rest of her unit.
There's not a word that describes what I feel. My heart is just overflowing. My emotions are out in orbit somewhere. It's just, I can't describe it. It's just absolutely wonderful.
People began lining the city's streets Tuesday morning, waiting for a front row seat, a first look at their heroes, safe and back at home. Taylor Harvey couldn't wait to see her uncle.
I'm gonna give him a great big hug.
The crowd, estimated between 10 and 15,000, had a message for these heroes.
They're coming home and you've got all this crowd and all these people just to say thank you.
A celebration to honor these troops for their sacrifice and deliver them back to their families. In Paris, Illinois, Melissa Andrews, Action 10 News, WTHI.
Welcome home. Another ceremony will take place in Paris in about 3 months. This afternoon, the welcome home ceremony included a moment of silence for 5 men and women who did not make it home, killed in action in Iraq.
Now, the Wabash Valley's most accurate and reliable newscast with Mark Allen, Patrice Dayton, and Chief Meteorologist Kevin Orbert. This is the Night Watch edition of Action 10 News, WTHI.
The land of Lincoln welcomes home the 1544th. Good evening, I'm Mark Allen.
And I'm Patrice Dayton. After 14 months of waiting, long months of waiting, the 1544th Transportation Unit marched into Paris, Illinois this afternoon.
The soldiers' family and friends from all over Illinois were lining the streets with open arms.
Action 10's Aaron Murphy was in Paris today welcoming home the troops. Aaron?
Mark, Patrice, in December of 2003, the 1544th Transportation Unit hugged and kissed their families goodbye. After a rocky 14 months, the troops returned to the same love they left behind. After 14 long months, this is what the 1544th was marching toward. Home. Days, weeks, and months of waiting turn into a year for these families, which is hard on a young mother of two.
It was all thrown at us all at once, and I think we did a pretty good job, didn't we? We've had a lot of support.
Chris Staley raised her two young girls this past year without her husband Greg because he was fighting in Iraq. But now no one can divide this family.
It's been long and tiresome, and I'm just ready to go home.
The soldiers have been through many battles and losses over the year. 5 members of the 1544th died in Iraq, and others have been injured, including Vigo County Commissioner Judith Anderson's son.
It was a bad thing for him to be injured, but we knew, just like his sons told us, we know he's safe now.
Which is exactly how Greg Staley's family feels now that he's in their arms.
And I told him all Granny wanted was a hug and a kiss and him on home ground, and it's here.
For Greg's 7-year-old daughter, 14 months is a long time to be without her dad.
So what's the first thing you want to do with your daddy?
I want to tickle.
And that's what she'll get to do for a lifetime. About 160 soldiers returned to their families this afternoon. There will be another ceremony for the troops in Paris, Illinois in about 3 months. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Aaron.
One of the hardest hit units in the Iraq War will be home within the next few hours. The 1544th Transportation Unit, based in Paris in Edgar County, is set to return early this afternoon. Monday, people put the finishing touches on their welcome home signs, ribbons, flags, and signs like the units run through Paris. Now, the troops should arrive in Paris mid-afternoon. They're at least an hour behind the scheduled 1 o'clock arrival time right now. The word is right now they are passing through Champaign and through Champaign area south on Interstate 57. They're going to head south to Tuscola and then east on Route 36 to Chrisman. And from there, they'll turn south on Route 1 into Paris to the high school. Then the unit will march to the Edgar County Courthouse. The Guardsmen deployed more than a year ago. 5 members of their unit were killed in action. We'll have more on this tonight on WCIA 3 News. A road on...
With cheers and waves, the soldiers of the 1544th Transportation Company are welcomed home. Good evening. I'm Jennifer Roscoe.
And I'm Michael Marsh. Next on
Decatur,
WCIA...
Danville, Decatur, and Springfield. This is your news leader, WCIA 3 News at 5.
Oh, we just came out to see the troops coming home for Iraq.
It's a happy homecoming for 160 soldiers returning from war. The 1544th Transportation Company, based in Paris, is back home after more than a year in Iraq.
And the excitement of their return was contagious as school children lined their route home, waving flags and holding signs. And WCIA 3's Ann Dill was in Paris. She has more on the welcome home. Ann?
Well, this homecoming started with welcome home signs at the Illinois border. The troops spent the last week in Fort McCoy, Wisconsin. Familiar faces are escorting the men and women back to Paris. The Paris fire chief and deputy police chief drove the 420 miles from Wisconsin with the troops. The buses passed through Champaign County under a giant American flag. State troopers pulled over to salute a job well done. And in every small town along the way, people braved the cold to show their pride.
Show respect for our troops.
Students from the Shiloh School District lined Route 36 to show their support.
I'm really proud. They're out there like risking their lives for us, so it's just nice to help people out, give them some support.
They'll be really proud.
and feel really welcome.
Their long-awaited arrival was over in just minutes as the buses carrying heroes continued their long journey home. Well-wishers are also paying tribute to those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. The five soldiers lost their lives with the unit, and nearly 3 dozen others were injured overseas. Michael?
And those soldiers were reunited with their families late today. Their tearful reunions tonight on WCIA 3 News.
Edgar County closed for a few hours as thousands paid tribute to the 1544th Transportation Company. The ceremony was short and sweet to give the soldiers more time with their families. WCIA 3's Ann Dill was in Paris for the reunion. Probably not a dry eye in Paris today, huh, Ann?
No, I think they all sold out of Kleenex. Even people who didn't know a soldier personally came out to show their support today, and their pride was flying from every light pole and building. Patriotism is literally written across the faces of family and friends in Edgar County. These families said goodbye to their soldiers more than a year ago, and now their homecoming can't come soon enough.
We're real proud. I mean, I've prayed for them every day.
Eventually, cheers erupted through the crowd when the 3 charter buses came into sight. Wearing their pride on their sleeves, the soldiers paraded together one last time down Main Street. And while still in formation, Taps was played in honor of the 5 soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice.
They're in my thoughts every day. There's not a day that doesn't go by that I don't think about them.
The 1544th completed more than 1,200 missions, and these eyes witnessed one of the greatest achievements in Iraq, free elections.
We couldn't contain ourselves. It just made it all worth it, you know, to actually be a part of that and be a part of history. You know, actually felt we accomplished something when, you're surrounded by chaos daily.
For Sergeant Alex Wernz, this day is extra special.
Hey, you take care, bud. Yeah.
He came home on his 23rd birthday and was amazed by all the support along the way.
Just north of Champaign, these fire trucks had this big, huge flag up in the air, and it was really cool over the overpass.
For now, these soldiers will stay in the welcoming arms of their families.
I saw Chad! I saw Chad!
But it's the military bonds that can never be broken.
They're incredible. They are my family, my brothers, my sisters. Like, we will be together for the rest of our lives.
Just live every day to the fullest. That's all you can do. Just be happy with what you got, because you never know.
Everyone from police and firemen to friends and strangers waved thank you signs and flags along their route home. The soldiers say the support that they received is incredible. Jennifer?
All right, most soldiers still have to finish their active duty term, so are they going to get a lot of time with their families?
They get 90 days leave right now, and then they will be discharged depending on when they enlisted.
All right, thank you, Ann. Moving on, also on WCIA 3 News at 10, National Guard members have a big homecoming in Paris.
And a high-speed chase ends in a crash in Christian County.
Plus, the Illini women get ready for some crucial games.
You're watching WCIA 3, your news leader, with Jennifer Roscoe, Michael Marsh, Storm Tracker weather with Judy Fraser, and Jason Elliott on sports. This is WCIA 3, news at 10. Only through
Pace on foot.
It was a day of celebration in Edgar County as some National Guard soldiers based in Paris came home from Iraq today. The 1544th Transportation Company was overseas for a year. That unit lost 5 soldiers in combat, and more than a dozen couldn't be at the homecoming because of wounds. But these troops say watching Iraqis vote for the first time made it worthwhile.
We couldn't contain ourselves. It just made it all worth it, to actually be a part of that and be a part of history. Actually felt we accomplished something when, you're surrounded by chaos daily.
The soldiers have 90 days leave now.
They're finally back to central Illinois soil. Soldiers from the Paris-based 1544th Transportation Company are finally home. I'm Abby Alford, and tonight on WAND News, we'll show you their reunion.
Coming up tonight at 6.
A group of Central Illinois soldiers came home this afternoon following more than a year in Iraq. The Illinois National Guard 1544th Transportation Company out of Paris drove home today from Fort McCoy, Wisconsin after finishing up demobilization. And with that, our Abby Alford was there, and Champaign Fire Department actually put a flag out this morning on the interstate to greet the troops as they came through. You saw it all, Abby. Tell us, what was it like? What was that firsthand account of that homecoming?
Michaela, it was indescribable. I mean, the families were just chanting and cheering. They couldn't wait to touch those soldiers, even though some of them did touch them about 2 weeks ago. They were finally home. And passing by here at the Armory, it was a sign they were finally home. Cheering for their heroes, the chants sound surreal.
To come home and see the culmination of everything when you're driving down the street and you see the streets lined and all the flags and all the people. You can't describe it other than that. It's, your heart leaps in your chest and you cry and you laugh and smile and everything.
Marching for their freedom, soldiers from the 1544th can't wipe the grins off their faces.
I'm just happy. I'm on cloud nine right now. I don't know what to say.
The first sign,
it's just an amazing feeling. I mean, this is probably one of the highest things I've ever done in my whole entire life, and now it's achieved.
Or let go of the lips they longed for over a year. Even 3-month-old Lane Ross is still in awe. Daddy's learning what it finally feels like to hold his son.
It's the best feeling in the world. I didn't think I'd get to see him.
As families and loved ones grab onto their heroes, being home for good still doesn't seem real. Here at the Paris-based 1544th Transportation Company Armory, nearly 160 soldiers passed by for... Tears of joy and sorrow mixed in the crowd as everyone welcomed home their heroes. Tonight on WAND News at 6, we'll hear from two brothers who served in the 1544 together over in Iraq. Live in Paris, Abby Alford, WAND News.
All right, Abby, thanks for that report tonight.
Boy, it was a joyous day as members of the 1544 Transportation Unit were reunited with their families.
Our Abby Alford was at their homecoming and joins us live now with more. Abby.
Don and Sean, we're live in Paris where nearly 160 soldiers of the 1544 Transportation Company are finally home with their friends and families tonight. As the troops arrived in Paris, they were greeted with welcome home signs, American flags, and loud cheers. Some of the soldiers even say the moment was unbelievable, but supporters say it's a return home long overdue, especially for one Stewartson family. 22-year-old specialist Zach Wetherill and his older brother, Sergeant David Wetherill of Stewartson, say they don't take fighting side by side for granted.
People kept asking me, they're like, aren't you incredibly terrified that your brother's over here right now? And I said no, because I knew that we were together. I knew that God was watching over both of us, and I couldn't imagine him being over there with any other unit.
It was a great experience for me to go over there, and especially to be with my brother. It would have been a lot harder to do without my brother and the close friends and family that I had over there.
Families of the 1544th who lost their heroes over in Iraq say today's homecoming brought much needed closure. Live in Paris, Abby Alford, WAND News.
All right, thank you, Abby. It looked
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Sean Streety.
And I'm Dawn Sterling. Central Illinois troops finally return home from overseas duty, and voters go to the polls. Those are just two of the stories we're following tonight.
That's right. Coming up tonight on Nightcast, voters in 9 Central Illinois counties go to the polls for local primaries. In one county, tonight's results could be challenged in court. And we take you to the homecomings for the 1544th Transportation Company in Paris and the Springfield-based 3637th Maintenance Company. Plus, Brandon brings you high school hoops tonight.
Sweet home was the feeling today for troops returning to Illinois. See how the 1544th Transportation Unit was welcomed to Paris as we were there.
And a maintenance company that also served returns to Springfield. The feelings there much the same. Their reunion and reaction still to come.
Memorial Hospital.
They're finally home tonight. All 160 members from the Paris-based 1544 Transportation Company are back in Central Illinois. Following more than a year in Iraq, troops arrived in Paris to see kids chanting, waving, even supporters painting themselves to show their support. But before the soldiers were dismissed, they held a moment of silence for their 5 fallen heroes. Specialist Jessica Colby's mother and her daughter Sierra of Muhammad say they still hold Jessica close to their hearts by wearing her ashes around their necks.
We're really happy for the troops that they made it safe, and so we just want to welcome them back. And we're really sad that Jessica's not with them.
Members of the 1544th also awarded 32 Purple Hearts during their service.